Indianapolis. That's a name that gets the attention of every racing driver and fan alike. Since 1909, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has been a prime example of speed, pitting man and machine against one another in epic battles across the yard of bricks. Moving away from the rectangular shape of the oval that conveniently resembles a brick, the road course at Indianapolis has been the center of both amazing racing and controversy, most notably surrounding the F1 World Championship in the mid-2000s. Since then, however, amazing racing has carried on and proven these hallowed grounds to be feasible for road racing, even adding a NASCAR Xfinity Series date in 2020. Tonight, the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League adds their own line to the growing stories of Indy in the week leading up to the SRO event at this very facility. Welcome, race fans, to Pit Stop TV. As usual, we're live to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter this evening. I've got JP Costa and Emerson Arden with me in the booth, Trey Shuttlesworth with social media coverage. I'm Andrew Cardinale IV, and this is Pit Stop TV's live coverage of the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League. We join you tonight from the virtual Speedway, Indiana for round 5 of 8 on the season. And gentlemen, it's been a couple of weeks, but we're finally back to all of our wonderful viewers at home with some Operation eMotorsport action, some global Mazda MX-5s at Indianapolis Motor Speedway's road course. It's going to be a great evening of racing, I think. 60 minutes, of course, on the docket. These guys will have to pit once, as usual. And we even have a new driver or two out there. It's going to be a great night of racing, rather, JP.
Yeah, just as you said, it's a great circuit to produce great racing. Unfortunately, it's, I guess, most remembered for the scandal that was the 2005 US Grand Prix. But, with this 13 corners, pretty much 4.2 kilometer layout, it definitely has a lot of overtaking opportunities leading up to pretty much every single corner. Some corners lead up to another, so if you go deep in someone, you may lose all the way to the start-finish straight. For example, at turn 12 and turn 13, sorry. And it's going to produce great racing tonight, just as we saw all season long from these guys. And I can't wait for another hour of fantastic racing. And judging by the practice times, it's going to be closer than ever. We saw 6 cars with less than 1 second separating them, so it should be a very interesting battle for us all to commentate and watch tonight.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this track has a great combination of heavy braking zones, medium and high-speed corners, especially with oval turn number 1 in the opposite direction the oval normally goes in. These cars, most cars can't take most racing series that have driven this circuit can't take that turn necessarily wide open, and these cars they can. I mean, the power has these cars very very tight knit through the middle portions, and the slipstream that's going to be coming out of the infield to the first corner is going to be absolutely wicked.
That it is. I'm definitely excited to see how these Miatas do around this place. It's going to be an interesting show of what these MX-5s can really do, and they're a fan favorite, these Mazda Miatas as well, so I'm glad that we have them on hand at a place like Indianapolis. You know who else we have on hand? Well, we have one Bob Page, Robert Page of the Page Group, and we'll bring him right on in here. And Bob, I guess I kind of caught you in a conversation with Jason Leach, our organizational man over there with Operation Motorsport. But Bob, it's nice to have you here this evening, and it's nice to really be able to tell everybody a little bit more about CrowdStrike and how you guys work with Operation Motorsport.
Well, happy to be here with you, and I know you've had Kevin on the show several times. Kevin Bohm races for CrowdStrike Racing and AWS. We're glad to have him on our team, and obviously we're thrilled to see him going into Indy with a lead in his class, so that's an exciting part. CrowdStrike and AWS have gotten engaged with Diesel, Tiffany, and the entire OPMO organization going back about 2 years. And we had them in our paddock for a number of events last year. And this year we put individuals into the Kevin Bohm racing team for the entire season, largely because Kevin was a startup team and he was looking for support without having to invest a lot of money in it. And so we brought him into our organization, sponsored a number of his opportunities to participate, and in turn introduced him to Operation Motorsports to again help him with the staffing and support side of his business.
All right, well, it's going to kind of get the kind of history on how you guys found Kevin Bohm and Operation Motorsport. Tell us about your specific role, Bob, with CrowdStrike, Operation Motorsport, and how you guys work together, because there's a lot that even we're still learning and trying to present to everybody at home. So go ahead and just tell us the specifics about exactly what you do with both CrowdStrike and Operation Motorsport.
Well, I am a consultant. I work with both AWS and CrowdStrike in a role managing and developing their opportunities in motorsports. I've been heavily involved with CrowdStrike for 5 years now. AWS came on board a little over 3 years ago, and we run a very strong strategic partnership that's focused on bringing executives within our target list of client companies to major motorsports events and hosting what are called CXO conferences. That is an opportunity for us to build peer-to-peer relationships with people that have an impact and influence within the cybersecurity and cloud computing space. That has been a concept that we have driven for over 5 years, and AWS became a partner of ours, as I said, and became fully engaged with us 3 years ago. So we bring a number of guests to most race weekends, not including 2020 with our COVID issues. And during those weekends, we host a conference on Friday all day, and then Saturday and Sunday we give a bucket list experience to those who participate to see behind the scenes and understand the world of sports car racing. SRO has been a major partner in ours in helping to develop a program that's exciting and dynamic for our guests and our employees. And SRO actually introduced us to Tiffany and Diesel early on, and we began dialogue and conversation with them to find out how they could help us in executing and delivering a better experience for our guests and our family. And that's largely how the whole thing has happened. We have, mutual goals in this thing, and that's to build peer-to-peer relationship. It is not a sales type of environment at all. And we're looking to try to bring people together to build friends and relationships that will last for a long time, which creates opportunity for all of us to enhance our business needs.
That's fascinating. You guys can, bring everybody to a racetrack, put on, as you said, pretty much a lecture, a presentation, give them, like you said, a bucket list experience at a racetrack. Have you then brought some of those people to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for example, for some of those presentations and bucket list experiences, and what usually headlines those kinds of experiences?
This is the first year SRO has been at Indianapolis, and so this is obviously the first year we had hoped to be able to do that. With COVID, we've not been able to execute for obvious reasons. The best example I can give you is last year for the grand finale, we were at Las Vegas Speedway. At Las Vegas Speedway, we had, I believe it was 72 guests in attendance. We brought them in on Friday, had a wonderful day of meetings and conversation where we explored all the issues related to cybersecurity in the current marketplace. And then on Saturday and Sunday, they joined us at the track. And so we had this wonderful opportunity to spend time with them, for them to get to know each of the executives from AWS and CrowdStrike, and to really build that one-on-one kind of connection that you don't often get an opportunity to do when you're at a trade show and you can shake the hand of a person and that's all you see them. So to us, it's really about spending that time, getting to know the people personally and expanding that reach. We do 6 of the CXO events annually within the SRO program. And at each of those, we host anywhere from 60 to over 100 people, depending upon the event. And, it's husbands and spouses. So we try to create an opportunity where senior execs don't have to separate from their wife for the weekend, because all too often they are separated because of business. So we invite both and let them participate in the activities throughout the weekend and try to show them a good time. And as I say, build relationships.
Absolutely. That actually sounds like a really good time. As far as 2020, obviously everything's been turned on its head and racing's been pretty difficult, but racing is still happening and CrowdStrike is still racing. Tell us about I guess, the general 2020 landscape now, trying to get racing with CrowdStrike and keep racing and perform at peak performance.
Well, again, I think part of it has to do with a strong team. And we've been very fortunate to partner up with DXDT the last 2 years. And our program has really grown dramatically. Having a good team takes away a lot of the stress and anxiety that's required for a program like ours, in that we can rely on the team to execute and deliver the product, which is the car that we want and desire to be able to be competitive. The difficulties that we have to deal with in an environment like this is, as an example, in prior years, we've been able to have a key engineer from Mercedes, come to the United States for each race and be in the pits and participate and help us with fine tuning and tweaking the cars. This year, that's not possible, obviously because of travel restrictions. So this year we've had to rely on Zoom and other forms of communication to bring those people into our conversation following practice, following test days, following a race, to still have that same level of contribution. So there's some little idiosyncrasies like that obviously have caused difficulty. But as you can see from our performance this year, we've been doing extremely well as Colin and George led the series up until the COTA race weekend. And unfortunately, we had to withdraw from the COTA race weekend due to some family issues with the team, and weren't able to compete. So we're going into Indy a little bit behind the 8 ball, I guess I would say, but we're going to fight until the very last minute to try to be on the top of that podium for the GT World Challenge Championship. And then in addition to that, compete for the 8-hour.
That's really quite impressive with CrowdStrike Racing going for those achievements here in 2020, especially with all the setbacks for everybody in the world. As far as you mentioned, SRO bringing you to Operation Motorsport and kind of connecting you guys with Diesel and Tiffany Lauder. Tell us about how CrowdStrike specifically can work with Operation Motorsport and does work with Operation Motorsport to help both Operation Motorsport itself and Opmo's beneficiaries at the racetrack.
One of the things that we recognized very early on in our conversations with the entire Operation Motorsports team is the breadth of skill set that comes out of the military. I think that people don't realize the skills, the talent, the experience that is within the military itself. And as these individuals come out, they're looking for opportunities to be able to reconnect with the general work community. And the other thing I would say is that both within AWS and CrowdStrike, we have a lot of ex-military involved in our programs, in senior management, executive leadership, etc. So they understand the value as well and are very willing to support it. But as an example, if you look at a paddock, the conversations that we have had with reference to opportunities for organizations like Operation Motorsports include everything from having a cook that comes out of the military that can come in and participate in cooking either in a garage for a team or in a broader scale for hospitality for the track and the environment around the track. We can have marketing people, photographers, we can have social media people that come out of the military and find opportunities with race teams to be able to contribute in a very meaningful way. Then you get down to the hardcore side of it, which is obviously the mechanics. Mechanics, we have lots of opportunities, perhaps not an immediate opportunity when they come into a team, but down the line to be able to expand their influence and their participation in relationship to doing mechanical work in the paddock with team members who have the experience to help train and teach them and bring them along. It may start with cleaning tires and putting air in tires and running to the Pirelli paddock to be able to get new tires mounted. But over time, you find a lot of these guys find an opportunity to move up and learn and grow, and it creates a real opportunity for them to be able to leave with skills that they didn't have before, but skills that were very adaptable to their experience within the military.
And that's been, I think, the theme so far when we've talked to each of our guests at the beginning of these Operation eMotorsport broadcasts, is that there are, like you said, such a breadth of skill sets rather that come out of the military, and just a plethora of ways to apply those skills in the back stateside in the world of motorsport, and give them so many different opportunities to apply everything they've learned in the military and even beforehand as well, and apply that to racing in a really productive way, and find them new careers. So moving forward into 2021, I know obviously it's really hard to even look forward to next week when suddenly things could change as we've seen this year, but trying to look forward to 2021, how does that set up for CrowdStrike Racing? And you mentioned working with AWS as well. How does it set up for you guys? What are any kind of general plans for 2021?
Difficulty for us is obvious. That is, we still don't know what 2021 is going to look like. We know what the race schedule is. We know where we're going. We know what the opportunities are. But the reality of it is we don't know if we're going to have open environments to be able to host guests. We don't know if we're going to have corporations that are willing to allow their executives to travel. We don't know what kind of COVID protection is going to be required to be able to participate. So that leaves a lot of variables up in the air for all of us as we plan on these things. However, at this time of year, we have to look at it and start with our basic strategy, which is it's going to be open for participation, and we're going to put on our full experience. Once we have that identified, then we back it down. What happens if? And so, just as we did this year, we had to pivot pretty dramatically. And we pivoted away from doing live events to still hosting our CXO conferences on Friday in a virtual world. But then we added things like a streaming video content that's presented on our website, which is crowdstrikeracing.com. And it allowed our employees, it allowed our guests, it allowed our friends to be able to go right to our website and watch the races live, streamed from the venue, with CJ Moses, who's the senior exec and deputy CISO at AWS, and Kevin Boehm, who's the race car driver for the TCA program, to both come on and contribute and really give insights from a driver's point of view while watching the streaming content that comes from the track. We've also gotten involved, just as Operation Motorsports has, in looking at sim racing as a vehicle to be able to engage both employees and guests in opportunities to do something different and remove themselves from the stress and anxiety that COVID presents. So we've looked at a lot of different ways to still continue to engage, and we've increased the value of what we present on our website. But at the same time, it's not the same experience as inviting people and bringing them directly to the experience itself.
Yeah, just like you said, it's hard to look forward to 2021 right now. It's definitely a changing landscape. Bob, we really appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming here on Pit Stop TV and just taking a half hour or so out of your evening to sit down with us and talk about CrowdStrike Racing. Do you have any parting words before we let you tune in for what should be an exciting round at Indianapolis?
All I can say is have everybody join us for the 8-hour on Sunday. Go to crowdstrikeracing.com/Indy, and everything will be live from the drop of the checkered flag until it ends at 6 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to have you experience what we're doing, hear from CJ and Kevin and other guests that we will have. And we look forward to a great race where George will fight for the podium in both GT3 World Challenge as well as the Endurance Championship. Thank you for including us. We're going to have a number of the Operation Motorsports guests with us at Indy. And we look forward to talking with them about next year's plans and how we can integrate and build this program further.
Once again, Bob, thank you so much for your time, and I might just have to tune into that as well this weekend. So I look forward to tuning into that, and you guys have a great weekend out there in Indianapolis.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Thank you for everything.
Thank you once again, and that was Bob Page with CrowdStrike Racing, and it's always good to get to talk to these guys. I keep saying it, every broadcast, without fail. In fact, that needs to be part of our bingo card, guys, that I always say it's good to talk with people and be a driver or these guest interviews for the Operation eMotorsport broadcast. It's always just good to get somebody else's outlook on things, what they're doing in the real world, especially in the real world of racing, and just in general, sit down and talk with somebody during a broadcast. It's always pretty fun. That said, guys, we do have a qualifying session that's been happening in the background of all of this, and quite a surprise currently, Dustin Burkhalter, one of the open drivers, is currently our pole sitter. He is, 2.5 tenths up over Chris Walsh and David Levine, one of our new pros in the field. So we actually have two pros that it looks like might actually battle things out as, well, Chris Walsh goes a little bit faster. But still, Dustin Burkhalter, currently our pole sitter. How about that?
Yeah, it's great to see, his form ever since Road Atlanta has been exceptional. Road Atlanta, he almost won the race, just lost the lead after a small battle and couldn't fight back. And then in Coda, he was just keeping up with Chris, lap after lap. Obviously, he dropped back a bit and made a few mistakes, but, he was there. And finally, it looks like he's finally putting it all together on qualifying, and hopefully we can see him win. It would be really nice to see an open driver win overall. He's dominated for the past 2 rounds, in the open class. So seeing him up there on the overall top leaderboard is really nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was the battle with the lap car a couple weeks ago at Coda with for Burkhalter really put a huge dent in that race, but I hope he hasn't lost any of that confidence, any of that momentum, because he has been very fun to watch, to go toe-to-toe with these pro drivers, with the pro driver Chris Walsh, and it'll be interesting to see today. Can he get an advantage early and then have pit strategy kind of help him along towards the end?
Well, I think just like Road America, this could be somewhere that you definitely draft in these Miatas, because Indianapolis, of course, has that long stretch from that final corner of the infield road course in what is Oval 2, all the way back through Oval 1 and across the start-finish line down to Road Turn 1. And I think that's going to be, in fact, we're watching these guys go through Oval 1 right now. This is Chris Walsh passing the 07 of John Winker. This is going to be interesting to watch these guys draft all the way through that long. Wow. You know what? Speaking of the draft, Chris Walsh goes up to P1 and clears Burkhalter by about the same gap that Burkhalter originally had over Walsh. So it is now a quarter-second difference between Walsh and Burkhalter because, I think, of that draft. From Oval Turn 2 all the way to the start-finish line, Walsh working that draft, working that slipstream, and getting a bigger run. And that's going to be important all evening long to use that as a passing mechanism for these drivers to try and work their way through the field. Speaking of through the field, let's actually go ahead and take a look at our point standings coming into this evening. And it's rather interesting to look at that beneficiary battle, guys, because they're only separated by 4 points, Adam Poppenhouse and Hunter Reeve. And in qualifying so far, Poppenhouse is, as you might expect, the fastest beneficiary driver, but look who's sneaking his way into the top 3 and might actually be able to start gaining on those guys ahead in the final 4 races. Theo Brolsema is putting his name in the bag, and he is the second of the top 3, if that makes any sense, in qualifying, but the 3rd overall fastest beneficiary right now in 7th place overall. Hunter Reeve currently clocking in at 9th place overall, the 4th beneficiary in our qualifying time. So that 4-point gap could definitely lead to our first points lead change in the beneficiary class since leaving Virginia International Raceway, our first race of the season, JP.
Yeah, exactly. It's really nice to see how the pace shifts between tracks, sorry. And last week we saw Hunter Reeve winning the beneficiary class over Theo Brosema, and this week we're seeing, well, Hunter Reeve actually being behind Poppenhaus and Brosema itself. So, it's really interesting to see how the track, sometimes suits a driver more than other, and Poppenhaus is definitely trying to make up for what could have been I think it was a disappointing race for him 2 weeks ago. He finished 9th place overall, obviously 3rd place in the beneficiary class, but tonight, 5th place overall and pole position for his class. I'm pretty sure it's a great result for him.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I was just watching the end of qualifying. Was looking to see if David Labine could make an improvement there. He did not improve on his time. But yeah, somebody also in the beneficiary battle, John Winker, as the second highest beneficiary tonight. He could play a little spoiler and work his way higher into the points standings. I'm not sure exactly where he sat in the beneficiary standings, but he could become a name in this battle with a good run tonight and then some momentum the rest of the races this season.
Yeah, anything can still happen. I mean, a lot has happened in the point standing battles to this point. We've only gone through half of the season so far. So 4 races up, 4 races to go, and it's going to be exciting 4 races to end this thing out. Of course, Indianapolis this evening, and you can go over to the Operation Motorsport.org website. You can check out their eMotorsport section and not only check out details about the rest of this season, including the rest of the schedule that will see us going to. I got to get back over to it. You know what? I had even forgotten the tracks because we have so many races going on, but we have Indianapolis here for race 5. Then next week we go to the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, which is going to be an interesting race, I'll say it that way. The Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, October 20th, and then October 27th to wrap things up at Laguna Seca. So actually 4 really interesting racetracks that are going to mix things up. Indianapolis, Charlotte, Mosport, and Laguna Seca will be sure to excite. But the other thing you can do over at Operation Motorsport's website, operationmotorsport.org, is check out the iRace of Remembrance that we have coming up on November 8th, 2020. It's basically in place of the real Race of Remembrance that is held over in England. And while we don't have, I actually forgot the name of that racetrack, while we don't have the racetrack that they usually race at for that one, we are going to be racing the GT4 cars at Sebring for 6 hours on November 8th, and that is going to be a very exciting event. You can watch all of that on Pit Stop TV as well. Ainsley Circuit, that's what it was, or sorry, Anglesey. Not Ainsley, Anglesey Circuit that we do not have here on iRacing, but thankfully we are going to be doing our best to replicate it in some way, shape, or form, just kind of have our own event at Sebring on, again, November 8th, 2020. Watch out for that, and you can follow along on the Operation Motorsport social media channels as well as our own. We're looking forward to that. We have a lot of special events coming up, actually. We have 2 back-to-back weeks there in November, so that's going to be a fun time. But before we get that far, of course, JP, we've got to take a look at our starting grid this evening. Go ahead and give us the top 10.
Right, starting on pole once again this season. I'm pretty sure it's the 5th time this season. Chris Walsh, and right alongside him again, Dustin Burkhalter. Hopefully they can have a great battle just like they did a few rounds ago. In P3 we have David Levine, so our new pro driver this race. So it's really nice to see him up there. Right alongside him, David Burkhardt. On P5 in the pole position for the beneficiary class, we have Adam Poppenhauser. Right alongside him, another beneficiary as John Winker. In P7 we have Theo Brosema. Right alongside him, Rick Hazlitt in P8. P9 and P10, we do have Shane Hunter and Hunter Reeve himself, so he's going to be trying to put a comeback race tonight.
All right, we'll fall back to row number 6, and we'll have the second to last beneficiary in the field, Callum Beldam, and alongside of him, we'll have Jacob Williams for the open class. Row number 7, we'll have Jason Leach and Mark Bray. Row number 8, we'll have Glenn Gray and Tim Bernard, the final beneficiary driver in the field. And in row number 9, we'll have Jay Gleason and Brian Winker.
So 18 cars make up the field this evening in Indianapolis, and they all pull away from their grid positions there on the front stretch. And, man, again, these global MX-5s are always pretty exciting to watch, and I look forward to seeing how they do here in Indianapolis. like I said, the draft battles from the final couple of corners all the way down to turn 1, I think, are going to be very, very exciting to watch. Can't wait to see how they navigate that interesting obstacle, if you will, that interesting passing mechanism, as I said earlier on. I do invite you all to check out our social media feeds on Facebook and Twitter to watch our in-race updates over there, Facebook, Twitter. On Facebook, it's www.facebook.com/pitstoptv. On Twitter, you can just search at pitstoptv_ and it'll take you right to us. We got Trey Shuttlesworth, of course, working on those this evening. And, well, actually, Emerson, you and Trey are switching roles from last night, because otherwise you're the same crew. It's just a matter of where you guys are at. Last night you were doing social media for the Northwest GT3 Challenge. This evening you are commentating for the Operation eMotorsport Round 5 Indianapolis. So good to have you in the booth and have him working on social media. As long as we have everybody here, man. Whatever works will work. But as we get set to go for 60 minutes of racing, we've had hour-long road races rather often as of late here at Pit Stop TV. I think we're getting pretty used to that dynamic and making sure these guys will have to pit. And that's going to be, of course, the interesting strategy is when do these guys come in for fuel, and do they come in for fuel and tires when they do so? Because I think at COTA a couple of weeks ago, JP mentioned this in pre-race, tires were definitely a hot commodity, and I think it might be the same this evening at Indianapolis. Through what is the final corner for the road course, but turn 1 for the oval up on the banking. These guys getting ready to go racing for 60 minutes at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're going to turn loose 18 Global MX-5s for the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League. It's round 5 of 8, and we're racing at Indianapolis.
You can see there, Chris Walsh is leading as late as possible in order to not let everybody get a slipstream out of him, but looks like everybody got a decent start in there. Already really close on the run down to turn 1. I'm sure David's going to try some move down the inside as he at least secures P2 for now, and as he backs off, trying to save a little bit of fuel as he backs off into turn 1. You can see Chris continues to lead as Dustin Burkhalter also stays in P2, and looking further behind, we don't have any contact, so it's a really clean start from this field as we've seen all season long. You can see there are a few battles going side by side back there. I'm not really sure who that was. I can see nearly going 3 wide as people are making moves left, right, and center, but looks like in the lead, Chris Walsh maintains that crucial P1 for now.
Right, it's fantastic. The first 4 corners very clean. Yeah, like Andrew said before we went green, a few road course races of an hour's length on the channel, and we've had a lot of first lap incidents. And we're only halfway through the first lap, but a very clean first half of the lap. Burkhalter did get clear of Levine. I thought Levine was going to have a huge run into turn 1, and he did decide to back off and maybe think about it, see if he can bite them off one by one. Oh, how about this? The lunge on Levine. I believe that is Poppenhaus going for third.
Poppenhaus on the offensive already. He wants to get up into the top 3. He wants to get himself onto the podium, but he now has Brian Burkhart to worry about. Another pretty fast open driver. He's currently in 5th, trying to put the pressure on Poppenhaus for 4th overall. Of course, Poppenhaus, our first beneficiary in the field. He would get the class win if everything were to end like this, but of course we're only on lap number 1. Through the banking for the first time at speed this evening, it is Chris Walsh leading the way. Dustin Burkhalter right there, though, in the draft, and that's going to be so important to make sure you get a good exit out of the final corner of the road course to get a big launch down the front straightaway.
And as the trend we see from Dustin, on the first few laps, he's very cautious. You can see there, he's just caught very close, nearly drifting, Chris Walsh, but you can see maybe just trying to put that strategy, early strategy even, to work, as you can lift and coast massively through that turn 1 and obviously on the back straight as well. So we don't know if the strategy game is already on for Dustin. The back straight at the exit of turn 12 until turn 1, you can get a massive run on the car ahead. We saw Chris going 7/10 quicker in qualifying, so I'm sure these drivers obviously are taking that into consideration. Maybe they don't want to get past too early on the race to get past again on the very next lap. So, strategy game is going to be on point for these guys.
There was contact in turn 1. Callum Belden went around. That was towards the back of the pack, and he's now in the 18th position. Not exactly sure what happened, but I'm sure slipstream and differing braking points had something to do with that. And we'll see if he can make a run back up to the field.
Meanwhile, Burkhart has gotten by Poppenhaus for 4th overall. This battle working itself out relatively nicely. Burkhart actually, it looks like, trying to put some time on the number 12 of Poppenhaus, and this is bringing Shane Hunter into the battle as well. So this is all happening up behind David Levine. Rick Hazlitt is the next car back from these guys. He's kind of in his own pocket, and then John Winker has a lot of company right now from Hunter Reeve and Theo Brolsema. That rounds out your top 10 through just about 2 laps here in Indianapolis. But how about the battle for the lead? Here comes Dustin Burkhalter pushing, bump drafting Chris Walsh, the race leader, down the front stretch to complete lap number 2.
That's not something we saw all season long, pretty much. Bump drafting, that's the first time I've seen on the Mazda. So these drivers are definitely trying to create that gap in order to P3, in order to battle all race long. So that's really incredible. Obviously, they checked out for P3 already, kind of 1.2, 1.3 seconds cleared already. So that draft is pretty much non-existent to Levine, and these drivers are just going at it. Dustin is putting so much pressure into Chris Walsh on his first few laps. It's incredible. I was watching his onboard, and is all over the bumper of Chris Walsh. So Chris has a very, very difficult task for 1 hour racing to keep this driver behind, and obviously he might be saving fuel as well, so we may see a complete jump into the pit stops, but it's definitely going to be a one battle to look out for the next hour.
This is like a triple whammy. I think Burkhalter is one, not being overly aggressive, trying to go for the race lead, but they're trying to gap David Levine and the rest of the company behind them. So when they, when Burkhalter feels it's the appropriate time to battle, it can just be those two, and they can, not slow each other down enough into the rest of the field. And then this is again, it's piling on the pressure on Chris Walsh. So just so much that Burkhalter is doing here. Basically mind games, I'd say. Having the great opportunity to make the overtake here on this front straightaway and not taking it.
Well, it's actually a common thing in Spec Miata racing to push somebody, and it's too early to really fight somebody for that position, so just keep yourselves both in that battle and just push the guy, get a gap. And now, actually, Burkhalter will go for the pass to the outside. I guess he feels that it's a decent enough gap, and he does take the lead across the start-finish line that time by. So, really, for the first time all season, we have a good fight for this race lead, at least the first time since Virginia. Meanwhile, David Levine under fire from Brian Burkhart as Chris Walsh retakes the lead into turn 1. Burkhalter to give it back up. That battle for third place on rather heavily. Levine lets Poppenhaus by as well into 1.
Yeah, maybe Dustin, quickly coming back to him, maybe he knows he has the overall pace over Chris, because we saw he was on pole up until Chris got that massive slipstream on the final few minutes that got him the pole essentially. So maybe he knows that in the back of his head, if he gets into clear air, maybe after the pit stops, he can clear that 1.2 second gap that creates the slipstream and maybe just check out from Chris. So he may be just biding his time, but we saw the run that he got out of turn 12. Unfortunately, he wasn't close enough to bump draft, and he had to put the car on the outside. Obviously, that's not the ideal line through turn 1, but he's gonna keep at it, and the battle for P3 is still very much alive. Poppenhaus made his way up into P4 now and is trying to fight to P3, trying to get the overall podium in the beneficiary class.
What a beneficiary on the podium would be. It would be absolutely amazing for Poppenhaus, and he's definitely got the pace to do it. Of course, he's also making huge gains on his championship lead in the beneficiary class, with him being 4th, battling for the 3rd position, and Hunter Reeve back in the 7th position. You see it's still this 3-car little breakaway from 6th place Rick Hazlitt now, and they're about 3 seconds behind the leaders, so they're kind of in their own little battle here. Here's Poppenhaus on the back bumper. Burkhart contact. He's pushing him down the front straight.
Levine going to take the inside line on these two, do to them what they did to him the previous lap, and he's going to try and clear them by turn 1. Poppenhaus now drops in behind him on the bottom side. Will Levine pressure to the braking zone side by side through 1. Go Burkhart and Levine. Oh my gosh, almost contact. I'm running out of air as I'm trying to talk here. Almost contact between the 259 and number 10 machines. They are all over one another through those first couple of corners. Finally, they sorted out single file. Maybe they'll finally figure it out.
Yeah, David Levine absolutely nailed the exit of turn 12. He was in that perfect gap, managed to get both cars into the straightaway, but Brian Burkhardt was incredibly brave on the brakes on the outside and made the move in defending his position, even though it was just for a moment. But, we saw Poppenhaus, that traditional cautious driving of him, just backed off and trying to nearly got both on the exit of turn 2, and now he's on the prime position to do what Levine did on the previous lap. He's a bit like 3-4 tenths behind. He just gets the massive slipstream from 2 cars and just slingshots his way into turn 1.
Yeah, I believe somebody blinked out there for a second. We'll, have to keep it on that. But Burkhardt continues to pile on the pressure on Levine, but Levine, the pro driver, he's going to try to use his experience to try to pull away from this battle. Poppenhaus, unfortunately, kind of getting left for dust behind them. It's still early, but that gap is growing between the 3rd and 4th position drivers to 5th.
Burkhardt now rolling up on David Levine. These onboard shots are great. There is a battle, it looks like, brewing for the race lead. We'll touch in on that real quick as, well, these two are still just nose to tail, I think, riding. I don't think Burkhalter really wants to make too much of a move for that position. Meanwhile, Brian Burkhardt, not so much. He wants to go for that 3rd spot. He wants to get back by David Levine, and it looks like he'll do so into turn 1. Kind of moves back over on him into the braking zone. Levine going to try get back to his inside. Couldn't cross him up into the entry. So now Poppenhaus going to see what he can do with the number 259. And these guys just going at it. This is the epitome of good Miata racing.
And you can see that Dave Levine just incredibly brave on the brakes on turn 3 and just got the perfect exit. Now he's putting on the pressure. These guys looks like they don't care about the fuel strategy right now. They want track position, as that is obviously essential for any kind of motor racing. As now Levine goes wide as Poppenhaus is on his inside. He's not in the prime move. He's going to try to do the crossover as they go into the back straight. You can see Burkhardt went extremely wide into the back straight. That's definitely not good. I'm not pretty sure if he's going to get a slowdown or not, but Poppenhaus is all the way into the back of Dave Levine. Is he going to try and coming up to the end of the straight? Looks like he's pointing the car. Yes, he is brave on the brakes. Later on the brakes, he's going to stick on the inside, but the corner kind of switches to the inside. Now, Levine has the advantage, and now Poppenhaus is going to try and line him up on the exit, but unfortunately he doesn't get the drive. Is he going to stick down the inside of this flash corner?
Oh, he hits him!
Contact! They make contact. Levine loses out, and he's going to lose another position to Haslett, who's just standing by and watching. Now Levine goes from what is essentially P5 to all the way to P7.
Yeah, David Levine there, he was just trying to make his car as wide as possible, trying not to let Poppenhaus get to either side of him, and I think Poppenhaus was a little eager, just trying to get the spot, and it was just hard racing. He dove it down into turn 10, and, I'm sorry, that's turn 11, and they just came together at the apex.
And that changes the entire dynamic of that battle. Chris Walsh still leads, Dustin Burkhalter. Brian Burkhardt in 3rd place. Poppenhaus now solidly into 4th. Oh, never mind, because he goes off the racetrack. Poppenhaus off in the grass, and he's going to lose a lot of time. A few positions as well. Here comes Shane Hunter to go on by. And that was Hunter Reeve. That could turn into a points lead change in the beneficiary class as well. If Hunter Reeve can hang on to that spot over Poppenhaus, even put some positions in between those two, Hunter Reeve could actually try and get that points lead now because of that mistake.
Yeah, I was just about to shout. I was on board with Poppenhaus, and he just completely missed his braking point. He almost rear-ended Burkhardt in a disaster fashion would be. But unfortunately, he just missed the braking point. You can see that on the replay. He just completely missed it, and he nearly went into the back of Burkhardt, and now he has to claw his way back into what was essentially P5. I'm not pretty sure if he's going to get it. Obviously, the train of cars just kind of slingshot out of his way, but now he's going to definitely have to fight for position again with Hunter Reeve, who I'm pretty sure won't be giving that position too kindly.
Yeah, that could have been very detrimental to Brian Burkhardt as well as Adam Poppenhaus. That would have given the spot right back to David Levine, as they probably both would have gone careening into the grass. But a nice job of Poppenhaus to avoid running into Burkhardt. Unfortunately, Poppenhaus, that does send him, back to the 8th position. The battle for the lead continues on. Burkhalter continues to pile on the pressure on Chris Walsh.
The thing that Dustin has to be careful of here as he pushes Chris Walsh down the front straightaway is to not get him in the wrong spot on the back bumper and hook him either into the inside or outside wall. It's really easy to do when you're pushing somebody in these road-going cars because the bumpers don't line up quite like NASCAR bumpers do, that are made for bump drafting and getting into one another, at least to a point. They don't line up quite as nicely now as they used to, but you've really just got to be careful, especially with that crown on both the front and rear bumpers and just the other design on especially the front bumper of these Mazdas. You've got to be really, really careful not to get somebody in just the wrong way and turn them around. As the action does settle down just a little bit, gentlemen, I do want to go through the field real quick. Of course, we haven't gotten a chance to yet. We're just about 14 minutes into this one. And actually, somebody off the racetrack. That's Jason Leach, I think, in turn number 2 off in the grass. But let's go through everybody that we have in the field this evening. Jay Gleason is currently 1 lap down in 18th position, and it might just be me, but that motor sounds like it's a bit damaged. Sounds like he's not had the greatest of evenings. The car looks okay, though. Well, he's got some right side damage, but it sounds like that motor's a bit off. Jason Leach, who we saw off in the grass, JP, he is starting to try and recover, get back on the racetrack, and get back into a swing of things. But he did start 13th and is already back to 17th position, despite getting up to 12th earlier on. Brian Winker ahead of him in the number 13 car. He's got a Band-Aid on his hood, and it doesn't seem like it's the hood that needs it. I think it's the left side door. The driver's side door pit dented in on that number 13. He rides in 16th position. 15th currently going to Callum Belden in the number 11 car that started 11th. That's also his highest position so far in this race. He's one of the beneficiaries in the field, and he's in behind Theo Brolsma, who it looks like has undergone a couple of unfortunate circumstances, lost some positions, as you can see there, as high as 7th place where he started earlier this evening, but has fallen now to 14th position, assumingly by just like an off track or so. He has fallen to that 14th spot. Mark Bray, though, up ahead of him, currently one of the open drivers in 13th spot. Now I'll turn it over to you for the next 6, JP.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, as soon as we got to John Winker, I was gonna mention they were having a fantastic three-way battle for P10, but just ahead of John Winker in P11 right now is Tim Bernard, and just ahead of him in P10, sorry, now it is Glenn Gray. Starting off in P9 right now, it's Jacob Williams trying to chase down Hunter Reeve, who's trying to chase down Adam Poppenhaus, who actually passed him, so unfortunately we lost that overtake, who's right behind Shane Hunter, and a bit further behind, a few seconds behind Rick Haslett, as we do have another 3-car battle. Right, and then I'll turn it over to Emerson as he's going to talk us through the top 5 as we have this fantastic 3-way battle.
Yeah, Shane Hunter there in 6th. He's quietly moved his way up here into the top 6. You saw there started in 9th position. I thought we lost him for a second. Glad to have him still on the track. And yeah, this is the highest he's been all day. A couple mistakes have gone his way from other drivers. And looking forward to the top 5. Rick Haslett has also had a pretty quiet day, but has moved into the top 5. He's now in this 3-car battle with Burkhart and Levine. And actually, that's Burkhart going for the pass on Levine to the inside of turn number 1. Can he complete it? He will complete that pass. Rick Haslett, of course, started P8 and has worked into P5. He's only been trending upward. Let's see if he continues that. David Levine, P4, has been all over this top 5. He did start 3rd. Right now is in 4th. His low did not register. I guess he hasn't been any lower than 4th. I thought he was. But there he is. He's made some contact up in the battle for the 3rd position before, and is still hanging tough here. Brian Burkhart in the 3rd position. He started 4th and has moved up the 1 spot to 3rd. And of course, we joined the lead battle, which has changed hands. Chris Walsh in P2 behind Dustin Burkhalter. Chris Walsh, of course, took pole with the slipstream lap in qualifying, barely beating out Burkhalter. When I say beating, it was actually a quarter of a second the advantage he had. And you know, only these 2 drivers have been 1st and 2nd all day. Burkhalter with a phenomenal performance in qualifying up until Chris Walsh spoiled the party. Here he is in the lead. We believe he has the overall pace, but Chris Walsh is going to have the slipstream here out of the infield and onto the front straightaway.
especially with the help of the draft, all the way down through Oval 1 and back onto the front stretch. Burkhalter has just been all over Chris Walsh, but now the roles are reversed. Chris Walsh with the big run up to Burkhalter, maybe by turn 1. No, not quite. Looks like Burkhalter will stay clear of the 28 car for now. Will he try and make a move into turn 1? Burkhalter actually stays over to the right a little bit now, moves over to the racing line for the braking zone, and both kind of wobble on the brakes a little bit, and they stay a single file through turn number 1. Third place has changed hands once more. Brian Burkhart gets ahead of David Levine, who takes the outside line into 1. Hazlitt looked for a moment. Levine tries to cross Burkhart up, can't do anything with him, and Burkhart sideways out of turn 2.
Yeah, Burkhart just completely lost the car in turn 2. No contact was made, so maybe he just lost the car under load, and that was disaster for him. He was running P3. Now he drops all the way behind Jacob Williams, who's P9, so that's unfortunate for him. Hopefully he can catch these group of 4 cars right now as he tries to make his way back to the top 5. But, just talking about the lead for 1 second, looks like Dustin didn't really want to get past Chris, because now Chris obviously has the advantage to just stay behind and save a lot of fuel, and that could be the race-winning move on the pit stops tonight, because this track, even though you're half a second behind on turn 12, you can easily catch that back up until the run down to turn 1, sorry. You can easily catch those 5/10 of a second. Now, as we watch this battle over for third position, as Levine now obviously gets back into his starting position in P3, Rick Hazlitt is going to try to close that gap up a bit and hopefully mount a challenge into turn 1.
That's a very valid point on the fuel mileage, JP. I didn't even consider. I believe, Burkhalter, he's been trying to out-strategize Chris Walsh all season. That solution definitely would have helped, and now Walsh trying to do the same. If they slipstream for the same amount of time, is it the same advantage? I mean, you'd have to wonder. As we approach 40 minutes, pit stops will be on the horizon soon. I'd say at about halfway, we should start expecting them. And then from then on, we've seen this season, Walsh getting so close to that back bumper of Dustin Burkhalter. And back to Brian Burkhart's spin real quick. Yeah, unfortunately, that's just kind of driving these cars. They're so hard to control on exit. I'd say, you're trying to be fast, and putting a little too much power can really send these things on exit.
So Burkhalter and Walsh just can't leave one another alone. It's a great point you guys raised that one could sit behind the other for just a little bit longer and go a little bit further on fuel and just save more, really. It's not necessarily about going further because it's the same race distance. Everybody has to pit once, but a matter of taking less fuel at that pit stop is really going to change things up and split this field apart. I think that's where most of these defining passes will be made, aside from, of course, the mistakes that we've had on the racetrack so far, which does put David Levine back onto the podium, and Adam Poppenhaus back up into 5th place ahead of Shane Hunter and Hunter Reeve. Brian Burkhart has fallen back into 8th, and Jacob Williams following him up in 9th. John Winker rounds out our top 10, and those guys still kind of battling. That battle is split up a little bit, but you know who is battling? We got 3 cars on top of one another. Tim Bernard, Theo Brolsma, and Mark Bray battling for 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Yeah, and these guys are having a fantastic battle. 3-car battle seems to be the norm here tonight. But coming back to Poppenhaus, he obviously coming back to Burkhart, after dropping back, obviously this track is incredibly difficult to pull that gap back in because everybody's just using the slipstream and passing one another. They're just pulling themselves further up the field. So in order for you to be alone and catching everybody else, you hope you're battling. As you can see there, Dustin, is that Theo? Yeah, Theo's trying to mount and move into Mark Bray's. No, sorry, that was Tim Bernard. So Theo Brosma managed to pass Mark Bray, and now trying to mount a challenge into turn 1. He's going to definitely have the advantage of the slipstream and could mount a challenge. If he does, and obviously Mark is definitely going to be there to capitalize on both of these drivers.
Look at your screen. Look at that gap right there. And look at how quickly it'll close. It's going to just continue to close with that slipstream. Watch for Brolsma to be on the back bumper of Bernard. As we see, actually, I believe is that the Pagoda? There's the Pagoda. by side down the front straight. Look at that gap. Close, and Brolsma trying to complete the pass into 1. He'll have the preferred line on entry. Oh, and that's Tim Bernard missing his braking point. He's going to go wide slide, and he's going to still make the corner.
Impressive job to hang on to things, although he does lose the left side mirror. Of course, as we saw at COTA, these guys on the new damage model as well in these Mazda MX-5s, so you can lose body parts, and, well, he lost the mirror. It just looks weird without that left side mirror now, that number 47 car. This does break the battle up, but Mark Bray suddenly in a great position to try and get that spot over Tim Bernard. That would be for 13th position. We have some other battles in the racetrack. Burkhalter still has a mirror full of Chris Walsh. That's not going to change anytime soon, I don't think. So we go back to 3rd place, 4th place, and it's still Levine over Hazlitt. Poppenhouse a little further back with company from Shane Hunter. Hunter Rivas falling off pace of that a little bit, but now he has Brian Burkhart to worry about. So just little pockets of battles throughout the racetrack, and that's what you're going to have with a track like this where the draft is so important. We also have a battle here for 16th and 17th as Jason Leach gains on Brian Winker for 16th position.
Yeah, Jason, after that small mistake, I was looking at the replay, he just went normally into turn 1. Unfortunately, a car went to the grass, and as he tried to avoid someone else turn in on him pretty much, and unfortunately that caused him to spin. But right now he's trying to start that recovery drive. Obviously on this track is going to be incredibly difficult as the pair of drivers keep getting the slipstream of one another, but it's definitely going to be trying to mount a challenge from at Brian Winker, into turn 1. You can see there he's around 4/10 of a second behind. He's definitely going to be catching him up before it even turns 16 here, and that's not the ideal place. Obviously you want to be catching someone, you want to be catching them on the front straight, because if you go to the outside of the banking, you're going to be driving a bigger distance and you're not going to be optimizing that slipstream. But looks like he managed to get that slipstream close enough. He's going to be trying to move into the slipstream again, and you can see they're just gaining. Now he's saving fuel, so he sees no gain right now into moving into the position to P16, so he's just thinking about a fuel strategy. You can see just how far he drops back, so that's just another example of how important the fuel strategy is going to be tonight.
Yeah, I totally agree. Fuel has been the name of the game of these Opmo races this season. Back to Tim Bernard, as he's actually on your screen right now. He's been struggling, man. I think he did more to just rip off the left side mirror. That whole left side is pancaked, and he has been struggling. You'll see here, if we stay on him, I believe it was through turn 9 or 11. He was just really loose coming through the center of the corner, and he's going to actually go for the dive here into turn 8. I believe this is on Mark Bray. A little too far behind, but piling on the pressure for sure. Still doing as much as he can in that damaged 47 Mazda Miata.
The 47 of Bernard chasing the 946 of Mark Bray, and they're just going at it right now. There's a pass up ahead where Glenn Gray is losing a position to Theo Brosma. That is for 11th position. I know we have a lot of fans of Theo out there that watch these broadcasts, and, well, Theo's making moves, getting himself back up through the field. Meanwhile, here comes Callum Belden trying to pass Tim Bernard. It looks like he just might get it done in turn 13, and he does, but he's going to have to try and stay ahead of Bernard down the front stretch, and with that draft, I'm not so sure how that'll work out for them. A couple of beneficiaries battling here. Mark Bray is an open driver, so these two green mirrored machines of Belden and Bernard really going at it for this 14th position. And the 11 of Belden was a bit sideways. Oh man, it's not a sausage curve, but Tim Bernard was still riding it there through turn 1.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great move. And while that battle was happening, Chris Walsh made his way into pit road and took tires and fuel. Right now he's slotted in right behind Glenn Gray, so not ideal to slot in behind someone. Obviously want to be in clear air, but you can see just how much the new tires, just how much more grip you have on those tires. So he quickly dispensed off Glenn Gray and is now on the hunt for Theo Brosma. So now that obviously puts all eyes into Dustin Burkhalter, who's making his way as well into pit road. So this is going to be a battle to see who saves more fuel, who's optimized the pit entry, pit exit, and the pit road itself, and who is going to come out on top to take the race lead.
I was just about to say that as well, yeah. With Chris Walsh pitting, it's going to drag Burkhalter in. I'm pretty sure this would be earlier than he expected to come in, or earlier than he anticipated wanting to come in, just because looking at previous races, he's pitted as late as about 25 to 20 minutes remaining in the race, and there he is stopping in his pit stall. This is going to be something to watch, the race on pit exit. Oh, he's taking left side tires. I'm not sure if Chris Walsh did as well. We'll see if he's going to take 4. But with how much slipstream is relevant, how high speed this track is, I could not see Burkhalter staying out there.
So yes, the understanding is that Walsh and Burkhalter both are taking tires into their pit stops, and Burkhalter will leave the pit lane. We'll see where he unfolds into this interesting battle, as there's Chris Walsh trying to pass him. Oh, they're going to come out right on top of one another. This is the battle for the race lead out of the pit lane, and oh my gosh, Chris Walsh moved over a little bit on exit, just trying to clear Burkhalter. I wonder if this is going to split this battle up.
Yeah, you can see that Theo Brosma actually got ahead of Dustin, so that is definitely not ideal for him. Obviously, he has the newer tires, so he should be able to dispense, but he can't take too long, as he looks like he's struggling a bit with power, it looks like. Is he dropping behind on speed? But he cannot afford to let Chris get away from him, because if he does, he cannot get back into the slipstream range unless he gets some great lap times. So this is going to be essential that he gets up to speed really quickly and dispenses Theo Brosma in order to hunt Chris Walsh for the lead of the Grand Prix.
Several drivers into the pit lane: Bernard, Gray, Leach, Winker, and more. Actually, no, that's it. That's all hit the pit lane. Oh, we've been keeping an eye on this. But Burkhalter, yeah, he looked... It did look like he was limping through that first sector. I don't know if he's just trying to, keep the car under him with cold tires. But Chris Walsh now has, I'd say, almost a 3-second advantage over Burkhalter now, with Brosma getting in the middle of these two. And I know slipstream means a lot. And here comes Brosma to the pit lane. Brian Burkhart on your screen in the pit lane. Yep, there goes Brosma. We'll see now with Burkhalter if he can use that slipstream to his advantage, but he is 3 seconds behind. That could be game over.
Pappenhaus also came in this time by. So Chris Walsh's pit stop, overall, the overall time was 1.2 seconds faster. The pit stop time reflects that. Well, actually, the pit stop time was 2.3 seconds faster. So, actually, Chris Walsh was slower in the pit lane, but Dustin Burkhalter was just 2.3 seconds longer in his pit box for the actual service. So, that's where that difference really comes from. And overall, it ends up being a little over a second on the racetrack. Well, no, I think it would have been, but John Winker and Theo Brosma getting in the middle of things really split these two up, and it's going to be really difficult for Burkhalter to recover and battle Chris Walsh for a race win now. Our leader, David Levine, has company from Rick Hazlitt. These two have not gotten too far from one another since finding one another after that contact with Pappenhaus there for Levine. And since then, they've just been riding around the 259 and 59. And, well, I think it's going to stay that way because they are not pitting that time by.
Yeah, looks like they're both going to stick out, and obviously that's the different strategy. Stick out as long as you can on this tank of fuel and on these tires, so in the end you can have a lighter car and obviously fresher tires. So you can see that Rick Hazlitt staying behind, saving a bit of fuel, and this could have been a strategy that Dustin tried. He could have done this strategy, but unfortunately he decided to cover that undercut and it came in on the very next lap. Only time will tell if that was the right strategy, but these guys are definitely trying to save fuel. David Levine is obviously trying to get rid of Rick Hazlitt right on pace, but obviously he can't do it to that slipstream, and they're both attacking the track inch by inch, and Rick is definitely mounting a very big challenge. And you can see there David Levine going wide and going a bit defensive. That's definitely going to compromise his line over the next few corners.
Yeah, I agree. I think Burkhalter wanted to go on this strategy. I definitely would, say, especially, from the earlier races this season. But this track, we've seen how slipstream dependent it is, how draft dependent. Oh, David Levine went wide in turn 7. He's going to have a slowdown to go side by side for the race lead. Hazlitt to the outside, but Levine will pick up the power and get cleared back by Hazlitt. But back to my original point, yeah, Burkhalter would not have had any slipstream to help him save fuel or to help him keep lap time, as he knew Chris Walsh would come out in traffic anyway. And he eventually did get out ahead of Chris Walsh, and Walsh just overpowered him.
Yeah, I think, of course, also Walsh running that lap on faster tires might have played into getting extra time there on Burkhalter, but really it all comes down to that pit stop being 2.3 seconds faster for Chris Walsh is going to be the big kicker there to split those two apart. I mean, that's That's a big difference. Really the gap that you want to get outside of for the draft is around a second or so. So the fact that it was 2.3 seconds and the overall time was 1.2 seconds faster, I mean, that's already a pretty big gap for Burkhalter to try and make up. And now the gap is about 3.2 seconds. I mean, that's just... I think that's a bit insurmountable to a place like Indianapolis where there's just so much on throttle time because you have that long straightaway pretty much all the way from turn 12, even though you're going around turn 13. It races like a straightaway. Jacob Williams into the pit lane, and he's going to come in for a service in the number 32 car. We've only had now 5 cars stay out to this point. Levine, Hazlitt, Hunter, Reeve, and John Winker. And I promise I wasn't saying Hunter Reeve is one name, but Shane Hunter and Hunter Reeve both have stayed out to this point.
Yeah, and the battle for the lead is definitely still on. Right now, for the lead, obviously, is not the effective race lead, but definitely these guys are fighting for what is essentially right now the race lead, as Rick Hazlitt still saving fuel. So Rick is definitely going to be jumping Levine on the pit cycle if he gets the math correct for the remaining fuel that he will need for the last 25, 26 minutes, depending when he comes into the pit box, because he's just saving fuel all the way down into turn 1. He gets close and then he just lets off the throttle, which is honestly the smart thing to do as a racing driver. You know, obviously you're just going to jump him on the pit road, so there's no point. And it's going to be interesting to see these two drivers, and obviously Shane Hunter, Hunter Reeve, and Jacob Williams as well, where they come out and the inroads that they can make on the other drivers, since they're going to have a lighter, not only a lighter car, but new tires as well. As you can see there, Rick Hazlitt now lining up a move, looks like, on the outside of David Levine. They're going to be drag racing all the way to turn 1. I'm going to lead Emerson to this because I can watch it.
Side by side down the front straightaway once again. Neither one of them saving fuel this way. Both of them breaking that wall of there. Levine on the brakes first. Hazlitt to the lead. And I think that was Levine wanting to get the advantage of slipstream and saving fuel.
Well, they can't go too much longer. We're now 25 minutes to go or so, and I'd imagine they've got to come in this time or the next time around. It's to the point where they've got to pit both for tires and fuel. I think they're kind of doing themselves a disservice right now, running out here on these older tires, as now John Winker comes into the pit lane in the number 07 car. He comes in for assumingly tires and fuel. Looks like everybody in that range of 26 to 32 or so seconds. Jacob Williams actually was in for 33.7, so some longer stops for some of these drivers, and you see this battle for the lead continuing to ramp up, or well, I guess bring itself back together as Levine drafts down the backstretch here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. We are a little past halfway. We'll check up on the entire field once they've all pitted and, caught up with one another, cycled out from this pit cycle. But right now, Hazlitt and Levine battle for the race lead, and it's looking like Chris Walsh will have a 2 or so second gap to Dustin Burkhalter once they all cycle through.
Yeah, as you mentioned, those two, I was just looking. Dustin Burkhalter was half a second quicker on that previous lap in relation to Chris Walsh. So Dustin showing his pace again, what he showed in qualifying, as they both, as the leaders, both come, Rick Hazlitt and Levine, both come into the pit road, and Levine looks like he's trying to make a move around the outside. He clips the grass, unfortunately manages to save the car. That was really close, just like Max Verstappen in Austria. That could have ended very badly, as someone else, looks like Shane Hunter, continued. No, he pits as well. That was a lapped car. So these three are going to have a race down pit road. We're going to see who takes more fuel. Obviously, three of them are going to be taking tires, I'm pretty sure. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out ahead in this pit road race.
Side by side down the front stretch, but this time they're in the pit lane on the front stretch. Levine is in before, Hazlitt's in his stall before Levine, but that's just because Hazlitt stalls earlier down pit lane than Levine. So this will be a fun race on pit exit. There's the battle for the race lead on your screen. And Burkhalter, we thought it was insurmountable, the gap that Walsh had on Burkhalter, but it is now 1.5 seconds. It was 3.3 seconds just a couple laps ago.
So we're just waiting for these 4 cars to exit the pit lane. I want to see where Hazlitt exits in relation to David Levine. And Levine finally gets going. I also wonder if Levine might have got himself a penalty for clipping that grass on pit entry. It could have been an unsafe pit entrance. We'll have to wait and see if he hangs with Rick Hazlitt or if he has to come back in and serve a penalty of some sort. But he does exit right behind the 59 car, so the 59 and 259 still battling. Meanwhile, Dustin Burkhalter, as you said, Emerson, turning up the wick, and he has made inroads on this lead. I guess really like you said, we thought it was insurmountable. We thought he couldn't make this gap back up of 3 seconds, yet somehow, some way, he has made a big gain on Chris Walsh.
Yeah, exactly. His previous lap was 1.1 seconds quicker than Chris Walsh's previous lap. So that was massive gains right here. And you can see him all the way back into what we saw in the first part of the race. So now the game plan essentially is going to be pass him and then get rid of him, get rid of that 1 second. And you can see there Chris Walsh going extremely slowly, so Chris Walsh might be doing the strategy of just letting him by right now, getting his slipstream and just tailing him up until the end of the race. Obviously, we don't know if he has fuel problems, all this sort of stuff, but just coming back quickly to David Levine, I didn't see him taking tires, so I'm not pretty sure if that was a mistake and he just overfueled the car, but he didn't take tires. Now as we come back to Chris Walsh, you can see him just lining up the move, getting the slipstream, closing inch by inch. Looks like he's not going to be close enough to try and make a move, but he's going to be doing exactly what Dustin did to him in the first part of the race, just mounting that pressure, just making him know that he's there, and if you make a mistake, I'm going to get the lead.
You have to think, if the pit stop was 2.3 seconds faster, did Walsh intentionally underfueled a car to try to get the advantage and hope maybe Burkhalter gets caught up in more traffic, which at first, Burkhalter did get caught up in a lot of traffic, and maybe Walsh thought he could open up the advantage and just kind of coast his way to the end, not use as much fuel, but now he's going to have to really turn it up if he's still under-fueled. Burkhalter maybe fueled enough or over-fueled, but that being said, he's got fuel to burn.
Au contraire, I think Chris Walsh might have made a mistake and underfueled the car and not realized that he was going to be short to the end and has had to fall back to Dustin Burkhalter. I mean, it seems like he's kind of underdriving the car right now. He's definitely driving to keep up with Burkhalter, which is important because he's got to stay behind him for the straightaway. But to this point, it seemed like he has just underdriven that car and let Burkhalter get to him as he actually cuts that corner a little bit. But I wonder if Chris Walsh would have underfueled and possibly handed this race win to Dustin Burkhalter, and Chris Walsh is trying to make sure he doesn't lose any more positions, because at this point, even though they have 25 seconds back to Rick Hazlitt and David Levine, any trip down the pit lane is going to lose him that top 3 and possibly would lose him the race win, at least as far as the pro class goes, as he now has to race David Levine for that category. It is worth mentioning Poppenhaus is racing with Hunter Reeve right now. These are the 2 points leaders in beneficiary category, and they are 6th and 7th overall as they battle out of turn number 12.
Exactly. Poppenhaus, I'm pretty sure, is going to be wanting to get past Hunter Reeve and finishing ahead of him if he wants to retain that points leading position, obviously being crowned. So far, he's the champion, the provisional champion. Obviously, 4 points separate them too. As you can see, that Poppenhaus is just going to be giving him a nudge on the bumper as he now lines him up on the inside line. You can see them both going side by side through turn 1, through actually the main straight as they head into the braking of turn 1. It is possible to hold it around the outside. Let's see if Hunter Reeve is brave on the brakes. Looks like he isn't. Has Poppenhaus gone too wide? Looks like he has a bit, but manages to get the car slowed down into turn 2 and gets the better line and gets the move done to move into the leading position into the beneficiary class.
Yeah, Burkhart, watching that comeback from earlier, he's moved up a couple of spots after his mistake out of turn number 2. This battle, I believe this is still, is this Levine? Yeah, this is Levine and Shane Hunter. So Hazlitt has gapped Levine, and Levine now under attack from Shane Hunter. Hunter trying to get a top 4 in a mistake. Maybe if Chris Walsh has to pit again, it would be a podium for Shane Hunter if he can get around David Levine here side by side into turn number 8.
Remember, guys, this is David Levine's first start. I wonder if he didn't realize that he should put tires on his car, and the old tires hurting him right now, and that's why Hazlitt is kind of walked away. Shane Hunter has walked up to him. This is for the 4th position, so this actually gives Walsh a little bit of breathing room if he is underfueled and has to pit again, because Levine is only other competition in the pro category on older tires. He might still be able to eke out the class victory at the very least, as Burkhalter and Walsh still on top of one another down the front stretch for P1. I think they're actually at a turn 1 and 2 by now. But anyways, these two on the racetrack, the 927 and 259. I wonder how this is going to work out for Levine, being on the older tires, if he can hang on to some of these positions, or as well, Shane Hunter goes to his right side if he's going to keep losing spots.
Yeah, looks like it hasn't worked out for him, and looks like he overfueled, because if he didn't take tires and still came out of behind Rick Haslett, he definitely overfueled the car. So he definitely has older tires and a heavier car than most of his competition. So that's definitely going to hurt him. As you can see, him just goes wide into turn 2. So the car is definitely not feeling the healthiest.
Whoa, Rick Haslett! He just lost third place to these guys.
And yeah, it just looks like Rick Haslett, I'm rewinding him to see what happened, and looks like he just cut a bit of turn 1 and got a slowdown penalty. So he just turned in a bit too early, cut down the apex, the curb, and unfortunately had to slow down. So that's a third place that he's definitely going to be having to fight back, as, whoa, David Levine is on the grass as well, and the gravel. So a lot of mistakes coming back for these guys that are fighting for the position, for the podium. And Levine just outbrakes himself and drops a wheel into the gravel, as you can see there on the replay, as they head into turn 5. You can see him just outbrakes himself, doesn't get the car slowed down, loses the back end, then catches it, but unfortunately it's too late to stay on the asphalt, and unfortunately goes into a gravel trap.
Yeah, I think David Levine, he's still trying to push as hard as he did when the tires were fresh, or I don't know, maybe thinking that the tires aren't as worn as they are, but to drive these things fast, you have to slide these things around, and that is tire abuse. And I think those tires are on the edge of their life, and he's having to fight it. As we said, whoa, big moment for, I believe that's Poppenhaus, trying to get around, is that Poppenhaus? Yeah, Poppenhaus had a big moment there out of turn 11. See if he can mount this, actually, no, this is the lap car, Jay Gleason. I thought this was a battle for position. But Poppenhaus is 1.7 seconds behind David Levine. He will be the next shark in the water for David Levine.
This is Hunter Reeve and Brian Burkhart behind Poppenhaus as Burkhart puts the move on Hunter Reeve. So Poppenhaus was initially behind Hunter Reeve, and now that has since changed. Jay Gleason in the way of these two, though, through turn 1. I wonder how that's going to impact this battle. This is for the 7th position overall. Brian Burkhart, the 4th open driver. A lot of the open drivers actually really turning up the wick this afternoon and really having a strong performance this evening here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. While we watch this battle, I said we were going to go through the fields. Let's go ahead and do that right quick. We do see that Dustin Burkhalter is currently the race leader over Chris Walsh, 2.8 tenths the last time by the start finish. Shane Hunter currently 3rd, Rick Haslett 4th, David Levine in 5th. Further back is Poppenhaus and Reeve. And actually, this is still current. Brian Burkhart in 8th, Jacob Williams 9th, and John Winker 10th. The back 8 of the field, you have Brolsema in 11th, Belden in 12th, Bernard, Gray, and Bray hanging on to the lead lap. Brian Winker, Jason Leach, both 1 lap down. Jay Gleason, 2 laps down. And that's how they sit with 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, and just coming back to Hunter Reeve, he was holding up Adam Poppenhaus at one point and leading the beneficiary class, and now he's dropped back behind not only Poppenhaus, but also Brian Burkhart, as Poppenhaus is now trying to mount a move into David Levine, as David is actually really struggling with his car. It looks like his lap times have dropped off quite a bit on pace, as you can see just how heavy and how sluggish the car feels, as Poppenhaus is definitely going to be taking advantage and hopefully taking that essential P5 overall spot and moving 1 car clear of Hunter Reeve, who is the 2nd place in the beneficiary class.
Haslett and Shane Hunter go toe-to-toe for the 3rd position as, oh no,
Haslett with another slowdown, it looks like.
Oh no, they were battling hard. They switched positions on timing and scoring several times into the corner, and I think, yeah, he cut turn 1 a little too much. I was back to the beneficiary battle. If Hunter Reeve is aware of how David Levine's tires, we assume, is the issue, how David Levine's tires are doing, Hunter Reeve understands that he has to really pile on the pressure to try to get around Burkhart, because Poppenhaus is most likely going to get Levine. Hasn't yet, and Levine could easily still try to hold him off here for these final 13 minutes. But they entered today with a 4-point gap between the two. So every position between these two drivers matters for the beneficiary points lead.
Yeah, Hunter Reeve at least has to mirror what Poppenhaus does, if not beat him, each of these next 4 weeks. Burkhalter, Walsh, they're still battling up ahead of these guys. It's a 31-second gap to third. Shane Hunter now has that position over Rick Hazlitt. Doesn't look like he's going to lose it anytime soon. Then we find David Levine in fifth. We're watching he and Poppenhaus from one of the blips up top right now. Burkhart behind Poppenhaus. Hunter Reeve in 8th position. 9th. Words. Again, I can't English. Mark it on the bingo card. 9th is Jacob Williams. There we go. John Winker in 11th. Some battles were happening throughout the field all at once, and then since then they've all kind of split up just a little bit. So this is kind of one of the closest battles on the racetrack right now, this string of 5 or so cars.
Yeah, we can see another battle for a class and a position as well. Theo Brosema battling for P10 with John Winkers. They're really close to one another as they head out of turn 12 into the banking and into turn 13 right now. Theo is definitely going to be trying to mount a move into John Winker to guarantee himself into that P3 spot. I'm pretty sure in the championship. But, seeing those battles, obviously, if you drop back, it's really hard to regain that time because, the car ahead of you just might get the slipstream advantage. But David Levine is trying his absolute best in order to keep that position, to keep Poppenhaus behind him. It looks like he's able to. Right now, you're separated by around, 6-7 tenths of a second, as Poppenhaus obviously getting a lot of pressure from Brian Burkhardt as they nearly touch. And that brings Hunter Reeve right into the back of Poppenhaus as well. And I'm sure Hunter Reeve is loving seeing Burkhardt putting the pressure into Poppenhaus.
Yes, essentially the battle for the beneficiary point lead as Poppenhaus loses touch with Levine, Burkhardt, and Reeve turning it up on Poppenhaus with 11 minutes remaining here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Can Poppenhaus hold on to 6th position, or will Hunter Reeve make a tear up through these two and take over 6th, or will Burkhardt get the best of both of them?
Now under 11 minutes to go here at Indy, and these guys battling for 6th, 7th, and 8th on the racetrack. But as you mentioned, Emerson, this is just about for the lead in the beneficiary class overall for the season so far through 5 races of 8 now. Hunter, I don't think can gain it just by passing Poppenhaus for one spot. He'd have to put some positions in between them. But he can certainly start gaining on that number 12 car and try and put that 12 away as the season goes on because, as you said, only 4 points coming into this evening as we saw the point standings earlier on. But Brian Burkhardt, a big move! Oh, and he hits Poppenhaus! Completely blows turn 1. Is he going to get him again? Almost with the rejoin. Just completely missed the corner.
That was extremely dangerous. I guess he just missed his braking point, and Poppenhaus obviously turned into the corner because he has to eventually at some point, and unfortunately they made contact. Obviously Brian Burkhardt was the one that lost the most. You can just see there, just couldn't get the car slowed down, having to cut the chicane and coming back quite dangerously. Obviously Hunter Reeve had to smash on the brakes in order to get into the back of him. So that was an extremely ambitious move into turn 1. Unfortunately it didn't work out, and now he drops back behind Hunter Reeve as well.
Very, very scary situation for Poppenhaus. Very lucky to get away with only a little bit of contact as far as we know. I don't know how it will affect them, but he has only 10 minutes to go, but he does have his closest competitor in his class right behind him. And yeah, you saw, Burkhardt was turning. He was full lock to the right. He just could not get it slowed down. He couldn't avoid the 12 of Poppenhaus. And that grass became very appetizing for Burkhardt.
And yeah, that 10 Go Navy Mazda Miata of Brian Burkhardt has been one of the more aggressive cars this evening, especially in turn 1. So a mistake there, I think, unfortunately, it's kind of been commonplace. He's been really pushing the issue down there. We haven't seen big mistakes like that, but I think we've at least gotten used to him pushing the issue down in turn number 1. Now inside of 9 minutes to go, and we retouch up on your leaders. They're still nose to tail. They're just riding around, and we'll come back to this. Don't you worry. We're keeping tabs, watching this delta. But really, these guys, I think, are just trying to ride around. I think we're really just going to watch for that battle inside of 5 minutes to go, or if Chris Walsh does end up having to pit. Shane Hunter's third and kind of solo there. He's got 5 and change back to Rick Hazlitt, and he is 32 seconds back of Chris Walsh. David Levine is solidly into 5th place right now behind Rick Hazlitt, and Poppenhaus actually has a decent gap as Burkhardt's off again through the grass that time, and I think I got to count. was that turn 5 or so in the infield?
No, it looked like it was turn 3. It looks like he just lost it on the exit of turn 3 and unfortunately clipped the grass, and that cost him. But right now, the battle for the beneficiary class win is very much spicy. We can see there Hunter Reeve absolutely gaining a lot of time on the infield on the first sector, and I'm not pretty sure if he's going to be mounting a move into the back straight. You can see there they're all waiting for that turn 1. Obviously, that's the point where you want to get past because you have the most opportunity to create the gap in order to not get past on the very next lap. But you can see there Hunter Reeve definitely wanting that class win to try to move him up into the overall lead, the lead of his class. You can see there Poppenhaus goes a bit wide into turn 11. It looks like that might cost him on the run down to turn 1.
What really sparked this battle to pick up was when Poppenhaus had a big moment in turn 4 of his lap. He got very loose at the center of the corner, had to slide all the way up to the track edge, and Reeve was right there to take advantage of it, eat that gap all up, and he'll be eating on this front straightaway with 7 minutes remaining.
Hunter Reeve right in the slipstream here of Adam Poppenhaus as they run down the front stretch at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, across the yard of bricks and down to turn number 1. Looks like they just took about 5 laps to go or so. We're expecting 34. They're now on to lap 30. So once they complete this one, they will have 4 laps to go, so 5 laps to go that time. Anyways, as I mix up words, that was a bit slidey out of turn number 2 there for Poppenhaus through 3 and into 4. It's hard to keep up with these corners at Indianapolis because everything just kind of flows so well, especially with this section of the racetrack, JP, which now doesn't really get used, if at all, because when they repaved this place, they actually put a backstretch chicane in there to go from turn 4 straight onto that backstretch, and it just kind of is a switchback. It takes out this entire extra loop and avoids all of this, as actually Poppenhaus was sideways there getting back onto the backstretch of the road course.
Yeah, exactly. This is obviously the old F1 circuit that they use, but it's very much still enjoyable, and luckily we can enjoy it on iRacing as well. But looks like Hunter Reeve may be saving some fuel because he's not mounting a move. He's not trying to make a move into turn 1, and he's not trying to make a move onto any place really on the racetrack. I'm seeing him back off the throttle, so I'm not really sure if he has fuel issues that he has to be concerned about, towards this final 5 minutes of the race. Obviously, he might have, as we see Chris Walsh obviously still hasn't made any moves, so these drivers might have a few issues. As you can see there, Jason Leach looks like he has major damage to his MX-5, so after a small mistake down into turn 1, looks like he also lost his mirror, and looks like he also has the left side of the car completely damaged, so we're definitely going to be looking at the replay to see what happened to him, but that's definitely not a healthy car. Luckily for him, only 5 minutes to go, and he'll be home really soon. As we can see back on the battle for P6 on the track, but for the lead of his class, Hunter Reeve is still trailing Poppenhaus, not really gaining a lot on the straight. So this only bears the question if he has fuel problems, and if he does, is he going to get to the end without pitting again?
What happened to Jason Leach? He caught the curbing in turn 10, or he got on the gas a little too soon, or maybe a combination of both, and he went around. The leaders are encountering lap traffic now. It's actually Tim Bernard they worked through, and they're going to get through it pretty smoothly. But back to this battle for the beneficiary lead. Yeah, Reeve is just kind of stalking Poppenhaus. And at this point, if he doesn't have fuel issues, you kind of want to do this anyway and just kind of wait for that last moment to pounce, to not have one last hit back at you.
Hunter Reeve did have, it looks like, the slowest pit stop of anybody in the field at 21.3 seconds. So that's certainly big for Hunter Reeve, but keep in mind he came in 4 or 5 laps later than a lot of these guys, 4 laps later in particular than Adam Poppenhaus, as Poppenhaus actually blinks down that little backstretch into, I believe that is turn 9. So issues for Poppenhaus, maybe. I think he did the same thing at COTA, though, last week, where he almost lagged out. Thankfully, I don't think he did. Or no, I think he might have, actually, at COTA. Regardless, hopefully he doesn't this evening. We do enter now the final 4 minutes. Want to turn our attention back up to the race lead momentarily, because these two still nose to tail, and it's still a matter of whether or not Chris Walsh has to pit again for fuel, or if he's been able to save enough, because it looks like he might have been short and has had to try and recover from that one, JP. And now with 3.5 minutes remaining, it seems like he's pretty well committed.
Yeah, it looks like, just as Emerson said, he might be waiting for the absolute last time to pounce, maybe on the second to last lap, as we didn't see a lot of runs coming before the finish line. So moves tend to get complete after the finish line, so he might be able to time that move in order to win the race on track, not being able to give Dustin any chance to fight him back. But looks like if he had few issues, it's all sorted because he's being really aggressive on the braking, really aggressive on every single corner in order to try to make Dustin make a mistake. But you know, we barely saw Dustin making any mistakes on the past 2 rounds at Road Atlanta and at Coda, so I don't think he'll be making any mistakes. Obviously, lap traffic just ahead of Dustin might play a factor on this battle, but I doubt it.
Shane Hunter has had, I believe, a big lag moment or something. He has blinked out of the race, and he has lost the 3rd position. So Rick Hazlitt now moves into 3rd, and now we're taking 2 laps to go here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will we see Dustin Burkhalter, an open driver, dethrone Chris Walsh's impressive and dominating season?
Hunter's still trying to hang on to connection here as Walsh almost gets into the back end of Burkhalter into 1. This battle going to be more and more interesting as time goes on. Poppenhaus has separated himself by a second from Hunter Reeve as Shane Hunter possibly drops out of the race by virtue of his connection. That would bump Hazlitt up onto the podium and Levine into 4th, Poppenhaus into the top 5. Now Poppenhaus actually loses some time once again, and Hunter Reeve has to come in. Hunter Reeve has underfueled the car and has to pit once more, it looks like. That or it was an incident penalty or something, but Hunter Reeve into the pit lane in the final minutes, and this is going to be disastrous to his charge up to Poppenhaus for the points lead.
Yeah, so that just confirms what we thought. You know, he was saving a lot of fuel in every single possible corner. He was just lifting. He didn't even try to make a move on Poppenhaus, so that's really unfortunate for him. That's going to cost him a lot of points position because I'm pretty sure John Winker and Theo Brosema are also making their way into turn 13.
No, I think that was a penalty.
Straight. Oh, it was a penalty. Maybe even a stop and go. So is he going to come out? No, he just looks like he just misses his pit board or his pit marker, but he's now stopped, and Theo Brosema and John Winker, 2 other beneficiary drivers, and Callum Belden as well may jump him, so he might lose all 3 of those positions. As you can see, is that a battle for the lead? Looks like it's not. Everything is really close. As you can see, Chris Walsh is now extremely close as they're gonna head into the final lap of the race.
This could be it, all on the table for what is most likely the final lap. Have to wait for scoring to confirm that, but it should be. And here comes Walsh to the inside of Burkhalter to turn 1. Burkhalter, an extremely defensive line down to straightaway, and loose under braking is Burkhalter. Walsh to the top spot. Burkhalter, will he have one last jab down this back straight?
That actually sets Burkhalter up for the pass out of turn number 12, so watch for that. Meanwhile, he's got to hang with Chris Walsh, the hard charger in the number 28. He's won every single race thus far this season, and Chris Walsh, the pro, has just been on a tear, but he might get unseated. Dustin Burkhalter's going to have to hang with him, count his chickens, count his ducks, maybe his hens, and he's going to have to just wait. He's got to just play the waiting game as actually he charges maybe to the inside. Is that out of turn 8? Down the back stretch, Dustin Burkhalter. Again, you got to get all your ducks in a row, your chickens, pigs, everybody else, and you've just got to wait for that chance out of turn 12. That said, he might be trying to go to the outside of turn 9. Will he get there? No. So he is going to wait through this final complex of corners, and guys, this is what he has to do. Chris Walsh, the final corners, he's been so good all season long, but if Dustin Burkhalter can nail these final couple of apexes and can just get a big run up to the 28, that didn't quite look so good. That actually looked pretty good for Chris Walsh. Out of turn number 12. This is going. Chris is a bit slow there on the inside. Has he run out of fuel possibly? He's moved over. I think he's out of fuel. He's slowing down. Dustin Burkhalter is going to exit turn number 13 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and be the sole victor. He doesn't have to settle for a class win. It is an overall win for Dustin Burkhalter at Indianapolis in the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League. Chris Walsh comes up that short. Made it through 12 of 13 corners in the final lap.
What a finish. We all thought it was going to be a run down into the start-finish straight. Unfortunately, Chris replicates what happened to Daniel Moret essentially on Road America, just running out of fuel in the final lap. As you can see, just stopping the car, and unfortunately for him, looks like Shane Hunter didn't throughput after a while, and fortunately for him, he finishes P3 as P2 on his class. Rick Hasley is going to come home in P4, and David Levine, after what is a disaster pit stop and a few mistakes, is going to come home in P5.
The beneficiary class winner will come out at oval turn 1, turn number 13 on the course. Down to start finish straight. It'll be Adam Poppenhouse with the beneficiary class win. And he's going to increase that point lead. Brosima might actually move into second with the Hunter Reeve fiasco that was there that those final few minutes where you had to pit. Here comes, I believe this is Brosima through the final corner. He's going to come home in the 9th position, and he'll have about 8 seconds over Hunter Reeve. Brosima, 2nd place in his class. Hunter Reeve out of turn number 13. He'll come home P10. He'll be 3rd in this class, and he'll have Belden and Winker beat on this lap. Belden crosses 11th, and Winker. Oh, look at that. The push from the teammate. Brian Winker pushing John Winker. Contact there in 13, trying to get him to the trying to get him to the finish line, basically out of fuel. And I don't know, is that allowed?
You know what? This isn't NASCAR. I think we can push on the final lap. I think these guys will be okay as the Resilience Racing drivers just trying to get one another home safely. I wonder what happened to John Winker then. Let's take a look back at things and see when he might have picked up all that damage. Oh, it looks like he's been pushing him since the road course. Did he run out of fuel, or did he damage that car critically or terminally? And, oh, it looks like he might have been stuttering there. He almost clips Belden, actually. And, yeah, this is stuttering there. I wonder when he picked up all that damage. Oh, it was right here. He was racing Theo Brosima. This is into the final time through turn 1. Is there contact between these two? And this is behind Brian Winker, actually.
Yeah, I was just
John gets Brian! Oh, my gosh!
Yeah, I was just going to mention, he loses his braking point and unfortunately punts his teammate into turn 1. And that was unfortunate because he was battling for position with Poppenhaus. And unfortunately, it looks like then he just started sputtering with not enough fuel. And luckily, his teammate, with no love lost, just pushed him into the line, towards the start-finish line. And it looks like he finishes P12, the last driver to not get lapped. So that was really good, as you can see there. Dustin, that's what an overall race win means to an open driver. And obviously, we're just as happy as him to see someone else dethrone Chris Walsh. Nothing against Chris. It's just really nice to see someone else taking that victory.
And he stuffs it into the wall, too. That is excitement. We are going to step away, and we'll be right back to you guys here shortly, of course. We'll take our customary post-race break for just a moment, make sure all of our ducks are in a row, just like Dustin had to make sure his were, and we'll be right back to you with each class winner and maybe a couple of extras here shortly from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Don't go anywhere. This is continuing coverage from Pit Stop TV of the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League race number 5 of 8 on the season at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Sound art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it sound art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
Welcome you all back to Pit Stop TV, our post-race coverage from Indianapolis Motor Speedway of the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League. You just saw a thrilling finish for the race win. It's been Chris Walsh through 4 of 8 races, but this time Dustin Burkhalter gets the overall win at Indianapolis, despite being one of the open drivers. Finally unseats the pro as the pro Chris Walsh runs out of fuel in the final corners. Made it through 12 of 13 corners on that final lap, and then it just wasn't quite enough. We'll be talking to each of the class winners and likely a couple of extras here in just a few moments. And well, we're just going to start right off with Dustin Burkhalter. And Dustin, it was a race definitely to keep an eye on that number 33, because you mirrored Chris Walsh the entire evening long until, quite simply, the pit stop makes you catch up, and it seemed like he might have just underfueled. A small mistake brings you right back into the fight for the win, and he makes it through 12 of 13 corners before running out of gas.
Yeah, it was exciting. I was expecting something like that for the last lap.
Yeah, so how was it trying to battle the draft all the way from 12 down to turn 1? Of course, that was big, either if you wanted to try and pass somebody or if you wanted to save fuel, and we speculated that you guys probably were doing so the entire race. I mean, you were bump drafting Chris down the front stretch, I think, more often than not.
The first half, I was bump drafting him, just trying to give us a nice gap. That way, if we did start battling, third wasn't right on our bumper. And then I came out of the pits just barely in front of him. I caught a slowdown on turn 1. Had to drive back up and catch him, and then as soon as I caught him, he tucked in, and he told me he actually was fuel saving the whole time. He would have ran out a lot sooner if he hadn't just locked in on my draft and run behind me. But the draft's a miracle, and it takes away kind of thing.
Yeah, so this entire season we've been waiting for somebody to unseat Chris Walsh as the overall race winner. Finally, the open driver, Dustin Burkhalter, you get it done here, leading 22 of 34 laps as well. So that's quite a large amount. That is well over half. Tell us about battling there those last few laps and trying to keep a big gap, or I guess get that big gap to Walsh at one point, but he was just kind of mirroring you that entire run.
Like I said, I came out of the pits. We were right next to each other. I caught a slowdown and ended up putting him 3.5 seconds ahead. Got past a little bit of lap traffic and just drove the gap down, and then he tucked in behind to fuel save. And then the last lap, I knew he was going to make that move as soon as we got on the banks going into it, and can't defend on the inside here. I tried to over under him, and then I know that last little chicane, I was having more pace than him, so I was just trying to get right up on his bumper the whole lap. That way, the draft would just pull me right past him.
So Dustin, now through 5 races of 8, this is certainly going to help your chances in the points as well in the open category. How do you attack places like Charlotte next week, and then the final 2 races at Mosport and Laguna Seca?
I have been already. Beat Chris. I did it once. I'd like to do it completely clean with no running out of gas, but a win's a win. So now I'm just trying to do it purely on lap time.
One sec. Well, Jason, or I said Jason because I was talking to Jason in the Discord channel. Dustin, rather. Before we let you go this evening, first, congratulations on a big win. Finally unseating Chris Walsh up there. Who do you have to thank? Who do you have to shout out? And, yeah, just any parting words before we let you go.
I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. Shout out the EOD Warrior Foundation and James Johnston's Hawaiians for Heroes. And obviously, Operation Motorsports for putting this on, and all the other sponsors, RECARO, Mobile One. It's a ball.
Once more, Dustin, congratulations on the big win here in Indianapolis. I'm sure we'll be talking to you more and more often, be it class wins or hopefully more overall wins the rest of the season. You got 3 more chances to go out there and beat Chris Walsh. Hopefully you can. And that's Dustin Burkhalter winning this evening at Indy. JP, How about you go ahead and talk to that pro driver, Chris Walsh?
So for the first time this season, the first time in 5 races, Chris Walsh is actually the second driver to be interviewed. And Chris, well, that was a fantastic race. You and Dustin had a great race up until the pit stops, and then obviously after. So obviously in the first part, I guess he was just bump drafting, as he said, in order to for you two to get just a gap to P3, and obviously just create that gap in order, if you guys were to battle side by side, you wouldn't lose a lot of time and wouldn't lose P1 and 2. So how was those first few laps, the pretty much first stint with Dustin just bump drafting you lap after lap?
No, it was good. Dustin did really well tonight. He was quick in qualifying, and he had plenty of pace. I mean, this is a really tough track to get away from people, so it's a bit of a strategy game. I unfortunately just played it a little too tight on the fueling, but yeah, his bump draft, I knew what he was doing, so I had no issues with that what he was trying to do with the bump draft. He got me into the wall a little bit at one point, but there was no major damage, so it was a good first half for sure.
And then obviously on the pit stops, you decided to come in a lot earlier than what we saw other drivers doing. So was that early pit stop part of your strategy, just trying to get him by surprise, or did you just underfuel the car on the first stint in order to get like a better car for the second part of the race? What exactly happened that made you pit that early into the race?
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was just going to be a draft battle, so my goal was to pit. I wanted to take tires. This is the first week I've actually tried that. So I took tires, really went light on fuel, thinking I had plenty to make it to the end, and then pretty quickly, once I got out of the pits and I got past him and I had like a almost 4-second gap built up, I realized, oh man, it's going to be super tight. So I started backing off the pace, let him catch me, and tried to draft, and it just wasn't enough. But I mean, he was fast the whole week, the whole race. So I think he would have caught me regardless.
Yeah, unfortunately, we saw on the final lap, pretty much the final corner, exactly what happened between you and Daniel Morad in North America. Sorry if you remember, just running out of fuel on the final part of the lap, on the final lap of the race. So that obviously was definitely heartbreaking for you, but obviously a very good moment for Dustin. But if it wasn't for you running out of fuel, do you think you had enough on the exit of turn 11 and 12 to maintain that lead into the run down to the finish line?
I don't know. I mean, it's such a big draft battle at that point. So honestly, I don't want to take anything away from Dustin. He did a phenomenal job today, managed the race really well, had the great pace. I made some errors, and I didn't do my normal thing, try to run out front and create a gap. So he had the right strategy, he had the right pace. So I mean, all the credit goes to him on this one. Yeah,
absolutely. And to pretty much end this interview right now, do you have anyone to thank? Family, friends, sponsors, all this sort of stuff?
Yeah, thanks again to you guys, to Operation Motorsport, RECARO, Mobile One, all the sponsors that support this effort. It's awesome, and I'm glad the racing is tight, and I hope everyone enjoyed the race tonight.
Right, thank you. That was Chris Walsh, our P2 finisher for the first time this season. We said that phrase, Chris Walsh in P2. Right now, I'm gonna hand it over to Emerson, as he's gonna interview our beneficiary winner, Adam Poppenhaus.
Hey, Adam Poppenhaus, you got a copy?
I do.
All right. Another beneficiary class win for you. You came into today only 4 points ahead of Hunter Reeve. What was the game plan today?
The game plan was to, I put in a lot of practice. I didn't have much time last week and was pretty disappointing with my showing. So I was trying to win it all, to be honest with you. But, it came down to a battle between Hunter and I at the end there. I knew I had to stay in front of him, and it wasn't clean. It wasn't as clean as I would like to have been this week. So I knew the points were going to come in. The bonus points are going to come into play. So I had to make sure I held that position.
A little inter-class drama there towards the end. Brian Burkhart had a huge lunge into turn 1, and you two made contact. Now, I don't think it was intentional from Burkhart at all, but what had happened there from your perspective, and how did you two talk about that?
Oh yeah. It was, the racing incident. I think he had a malfunction with his rig, or something of the sort. But no hard feelings there. I think in the end it all worked out for everybody. But from my perspective, I was on a heater. I was actually catching a draft off a Chris there, and it was kind of like that a bug on a windshield. You're alive, dead. It was quite shocking.
Oh man! And did you know Hunter Reeve had to make a second pit stop, or how were you playing the battle?
I did not, and I saw him in my rear view, and I was trying to run pretty clean because I had a feeling that he was setting himself up for the last lap pass, and then going to the white flag, I saw him duck in, and that was a huge relief. I think I was actually able to relax and ended up running my fastest lap of the race. At the white flag, so it was nice to see. I had no idea, but it was very lucky and it worked out.
All right, well, you definitely had some pace today. Do you have anybody to thank, anybody to shout out for your beneficiary class win today?
Well, absolutely. As always, I want to give a shout out to Resilience Racing and everything they're doing to create these adaptive hand controls. We've had we had a great outing at Indy actually for the last Champ Car event, and we learned a lot, and we're really getting close to having a machine that we can really push forward with these hand controls. So as always, my teammates, we had some good practice sessions, and looking forward to next week.
Right on. Well, congratulations on the class win and the bigger point lead heading next week into the Charlotte Roval. Best of luck to you, Evan.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And as always, the streams are awesome. I love watching it. You guys are doing a great job.
All right. Thank you so much. And turn it back to Andrew as we continue our post-race coverage.
And we have one more interview adding on to this. We usually just get the 3 class winners, but we'll go ahead. We haven't got to talk to this guy yet this season, but we have Theo Brulsema. And Theo, firstly, I go ahead and correct me if I'm pronouncing Brulsema wrong.
No, I think it's actually correct here.
Well, all right. We've been kind of unsure the entire season. This is the first time we're talking to you here post-race.
Yeah, I think I did okay today.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good run. I mean, you were up there and you really mixed it up at one point. You did fall quite a ways back. What happened to you earlier on? You dropped back to like 14th, 15th position.
Yeah, I was never super comfortable with this track, or this car in particular. So I managed to qualify okay, started the race, and I going 5 or 6 wide into the first corner kind of freaked me out there a little bit, so I backed off, and then had a couple unfortunate incidents. I think I was down to like second last place or something, but drove consistent, did a good pit stop, and then had some draft near the end of the race, so I caught up pretty good.
Catch up pretty good, you did. You end up finishing 9th place this evening, and it's been an interesting season for you, but these last couple of weeks you've made some inroads on that points lead, and you're actually in the top 3 now, and if those guys up ahead of you in the beneficiary class make some mistakes, you could be right back in it.
Well, that's the whole strategy with the whole season, right? And right at the beginning I noticed that I was making mistakes, and the inconsistency was killing me, so I've just been trying to focus on the racecraft and driving consistent, and it looks like it's starting to pay off.
That it is, and Theo, we always see in the the YouTube chat, there's always a lot of fans of yours out in YouTube land watching these streams. Tonight, you kind of deliver. I mean, I think definitely want to get you up into the top 5 here soon, but certainly I think tonight, especially that comeback up into the top 10 and just trying to keep a season together, you've done a great job of it, and I think keeping those fans proud.
All right, thank you. And I hope they enjoyed it.
Oh, that's not it. Yeah, we're still going to talk to you here a little bit. So actually, since it is the first time we're talking to you, Theo, of course, we always want to get everybody's, origin story, if you will, with Operation Motorsport. How did you find Operation Motorsport, and just how have they helped you out?
So I discovered them as I was releasing from the Canadian Forces. I was in the Air Force for about 7 years, and then started having some medical issues that impacted my training. And I forget exactly how I found them, but I think it was a Facebook advertisement I saw. And it kind of sat in the back of my mind until I was right about to release, and I realized I have no plans for the summer. So I sent them a message, and within a week they got me hooked up with the team. I did it wasn't Blancpain at the time, but the GT3 race at CTMP, and that went really well, and I kind of got stuck with them since.
And so, as the years have gone by, I assume years to this point, how have they been integral in your life and getting into motorsport and hopefully finding your career?
They have been so super helpful, just because of all the connections they have. It's a great conversation starter at the track to meet people, and people say, "Oh, how'd you get here?" And there's all sorts of different stories, but this is one that kind of it opens a lot of doors. And so through them, I've been able to do general teamwork. I've held fire extinguishers, then I started swapping tires, and I was a second line tech on a car for a whole season. And then I've started to move more into the engineering role, and that's been kind of what I've been going for the whole time, kind of my goal. I'm still not sure if I want to make a whole career out of it because I'm doing a master's program. I want to see where that takes me first, but yeah, it's just been incredible.
Well, it's always great to learn about everybody's story coming into Operation Motorsport and now Operation Motorsport has helped them or how they help Operation Motorsport beneficiaries. Thank you for your time. Now it's almost over. Theo, who do you have to shout out? Who do you have to thank this evening in Indianapolis?
I definitely have to thank Tiffany and Diesel for getting me involved in this whole thing. And then the fans on the YouTube, Leah for watching every single one of my races, and the Baileys as well. If they're not racing, they're watching. So thank you, everyone.
Well, Theo, it's great to finally talk to you. Hopefully we're talking to you more this season. Best of luck next week at Charlotte, and we'll see if maybe you pop into that top 5.
All right, thank you.
And that's Theo Brolsma, and it's good to talk to these guys, and especially go down the list a little bit and knock off a few that we haven't talked to just yet this season. JP, we're going to keep this post-race kind of short, but let's go ahead and roll down our results this evening, beginning with race winner, Dustin Burkhalter.
So obviously, for the first time this season, we have a new overall race winner, Dustin Burkhalter, just behind him, 7 seconds after running out of fuel in the final few corners. Chris Walsh riding off the overall podium. Shane Hunter with a strong result for him, 7 seconds clear of Rick Hazlitt. David Levine, in his debut P5 after a few mistakes on pit road, definitely a good result for him. Adam Poppenhoff, obviously with that race win for his class, the beneficiary class, that's definitely going to help his championship hunt. Right behind him, Brian Burkhardt in P7, Jacob Williams in P8, Theo Brosma in P9, and Hunter Reeve running off the top 10.
Right, and we carry on P11. Callum Belden recovering pretty nicely from his turn 1 spin. He did get up to P11, and I believe that is 4th in his class. John Winker, P12, of course, getting pushed across the line at 2 minutes and 21 seconds after Burkhalter crossing the line. Glenn Gray, 13th, 1 lap down, followed by Tim Bernard, also 1 lap down of his damage. Mark Bray, 15th, also 1 lap down with Jason Leach, and Brian Winker, 16th and 17th, 1 lap down respectively. Jay Gleason, 2 laps down, rounding out the field, P18.
And of course, before we go this evening, we have to thank some partners here, both of Pit Stop TV and of Operation eMotorsport. But first off, we want to lead off with RECARO, Redcom, Mobile One, and CrowdStrike. And of course, we talked to Bob Page a little while ago at the start of the show from CrowdStrike Racing. But quite simply, whether it's on the track or iRacing, RECARO Automotive is all about making driving feel safer, more comfortable, and more controlled. A driving experience that you can really feel. And RECARO simply puts people first every time. And again, just want to thank Redcom, Mobile One, and CrowdStrike for their support. AWS as well. We don't have the logo on there, but we'll get that on there for Charlotte next week. Of course, at Pit Stop TV, we got to thank Sound Art of Tucson, Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, and Whiplash Media for all of their support. You've seen their logos on the ticker and just on these broadcasts for a long, long time now, and they all put a lot of effort and a lot of support here to Pit Stop TV, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them and without all of you watching as well at home. And that will do it this evening from Indianapolis Motor Speedway for our coverage of the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League. We at Pit Stop TV thank you for tuning in and joining us for tonight's action, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. Be sure to join us tomorrow evening as we bring you the Bluegrass iRacing Series at Talladega's Super Speedway, and again on Sunday when the Superior Class Auto Racing Cup Series brings us right back here to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Make sure to follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/pitstoptv. On Twitter at PitStopTV_, over on Twitch at www.twitch.tv/pit_stop_TV, and on YouTube at www.youtube.com/C/PitStopTV1. For all of us here at Pit Stop TV, JP Costa with me on the call tonight, Emerson Arden with social media coverage, I'm Andrew Cardinale IV, and we will see you next time.
Sound art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it sound art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.